Hey guys, it's Toby Morrison here, and on the other end we have Elana W. Hello,
Hi, Toby.
welcome.
Thank you.
Really excited to have you here. This is huge. We've actually never done this type of interview before, and we're talking with Elana from a perspective of a carer who is experiencing one of their loved ones going through chronic illness and navigating that journey. And Elana is a close friend of mine, family friend of mine. I actually worked with her daughter. How many years ago was it? I think it was like 10 years ago or something, Elana. Like, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, probably close to that. She's now, what, 31, and she was 18 when she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
so we kind of, we went on a journey, I guess. You could say that, and helped Carly for over a year and a half. And thankfully now she's got her life back, and she's kicking ass. Actually, she's running a global bikini company and doing some really cool things in the fashion area, which is awesome. But one thing that we always speak about is not only the journey of the person who's suffering, but the journey of the family around that person who's suffering. And you said to me before we hit record about how even the word chronic fatigue syndrome is just so, the label is so misleading. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think from my personal experience, and Carly had chronic fatigue for about 5.5 years. And during that period, it was also a time where there wasn't enough known about it in the broader community. And I found that people would misunderstand and say to me, oh, well, why doesn't she just go and lie down and maybe go to sleep? She can do more things the next day, or she can go to that party. And they didn't understand it wasn't about going to sleep. The fatigue was a total exhaustion, physically and mentally. It wasn't about, oh, I need to go to sleep and then I'll be fine and I can go party and do all the things I want to do. So I think that term was very misunderstanding. And because people didn't really know what the illness was about, they thought you were just sleepy. You should go to sleep. So I found that very frustrating.
So frustrating. And like, you're spot on, because at that age as well, it doesn't matter what any age really, but even especially at high school, the parties are there, the going out, the even performing really well at school. I know Carly was a really smart person too, like she really, I guess, prided herself on her academic side of things. So what was it like for you as a mother, watching your kid just be awesome and normal in society and functioning, to then just like not being the girl that you knew who she was, like, what was that like?
Heartbreaking, actually. Heartbreaking. I'm quite emotional about it. I'm taking myself back to that space. And watching your child suffer, you feel their pain 1,000 times more. It's happening to you, amplified. As a mother, as a parent, you want the best for your child, better than what you have. You want to give them everything in the world so they can be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
Seeing their sadness, and all the things connected with that sadness, the lack of spontaneity, the lack of choice, everything, just like their whole world crumbling, you take that on board. And seeing that sorrow, it's really hard. It was tough.
I want to get into some tips today for other carers out there, because you're studying counselling at the moment and you're almost finished, and this whole experience has taken you on your own personal journey to want to give back and to want to help other people go through this, because there is some really great help and coaching that can, one, enhance your own experience through this hard journey that your loved one's going through, but two, actually help the person more who's suffering by you doing the work on yourself too. And I'd love to talk about some key tips later on in this interview of what maybe 3 things carers can do to, I guess, help the person suffering go through things a little bit easier, and and how you can kind of approach your way of going about things, because we know that has a massive impact on the relationship that you have with the person going through this hard time. And Carly said it herself, you know, and I went through it myself with my parents, and I think everyone goes through it, is, you know, setting boundaries and not over, you know, finding the fine line between helping but not overstepping with help, and putting in feeling that immense pressure. What was your experience? You know, you guys are a switched on family. What, you know, and you would have found that right help pretty quickly, but did you even find it hard to find the right help? Was it a navigation of going from doctor to doctor, trying a million different things? Like, just speak for a couple of minutes on that experience for people out there.
Okay, so you're saying me personally and getting myself through.
No, with Carly, is like, you know, like, was it like, what was the process like? Like, did you go straight to the doctors first? What did you think you needed to do to help Carly, you know, at the start?
It was so many shades of grey and so little professional help out there. So back then, 10, 12 years ago, there was still not enough known about it. And, you know, it would be dismissed by a general GP as, oh, look, it's just in their head, you know, or they've just had a virus and they'll recover. And it was a process till I got to a particular, I think I saw 6 people before we finally found someone at the Royal Children's. Even though she was 18, he agreed to see her, and he'd set up this very unique program at the Austin Hospital, at the paediatric unit for chronic fatigue. And he was the one that was finally able to empathise and tell me what she has, and start to chart a plan to help facilitate her moving forward. And during that period, definitely before I found that guy, I kind of went through a bit of a black space and realised in my frustrations of not being able to find anyone that could give us some kind of concrete help and a direction to move in. And I kind of realised that I was like sinking a bit. And I actually just went to see a professional psychologist just to talk, because I had no one to talk to, because my friends didn't understand. My husband was struggling to manage it. My extended family, no one understood. And I needed a safe space to go to where I could just talk, and that helped me. And
well done. Like, that is just so, like, you know, that's really awesome that you did that, because not many people would think in those terms for you to go and get help. But that is just, I think that is so healthy and amazing. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, it was really important, because I didn't feel good and I didn't like how I was feeling. And then I couldn't be what I needed to be for not just Carly, but my whole family. So, yeah, I think people should reach out more. I think in today's world, it's much more accepted to seek help when you need it. Whereas, you know, 20 years ago, you just didn't do that. So it's great that, you know, it's acceptable to do that. And I think it's really important when you recognise you're not managing something and you're not feeling great, just get your clarity back. And that helped me to then manage the process of what we were going through. And then we were eventually, the frustrating part was, it was like 2 steps forward, 5 steps backwards. So Carly would make some progress and we go backwards again, and forwards and backwards. And that was really, really hard for me. And there was a lot of frustrations with that, and learning to deal with those frustrations and not letting them evident to Carly, you know, like, how did I manage those frustrations, which led me to a journey of meditation.
Interesting.
To start to, distance myself a bit. And I think meditation is really, really important to just give you that space, whether you walk away, go to another room, listen to some music, go for a walk, put your headphones on, listen to your favorite podcast, whatever. Sometimes you need to distance yourself in order, to come back and be the support that you need to be.
So awesome. Yeah, because as you know, I mainly worked with kids back then, when we started in 2013, but now we help people in 53 countries, and we help people from the age of 10 all the way up to the age of 80. It's amazing. But I used to say to all my mums who I used to work with their kids, I'd say, if you need to cry behind closed doors. If you need, don't show them your suffering in front of their own suffering, because it's too much for them right now. They don't need any more stress and feeling of burden. They already feel burdened, and especially, I mean, you're such a brilliant person, and Lenny's as well, and the girls, the sisters, and Carly would have, and I know she did, would have felt a huge sense of guilt for probably going 5 steps backwards every time and going, shit, like I just can't, like what's going on, and my mum's trying to help me here, and dad's trying to get me into this program, and my sister, she's checking in on me, and like there's this heavy sense of guilt. And so I think that it's really, really great of you, the fact that you did create that space for you to feel what you're feeling, and of course go through those frustrations. It would only be human to feel that, but to deal with it in a healthy way versus take it out on the kid. And I think that does happen sometimes, where the dad or the mum gets frustrated and says, and with good intention, but come on, like you need to motivate yourself more, be more positive, like come on, you're thinking too negative. And maybe that's true, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think, and I think that has such, I mean, we coach people in our program on this all the time. My dad doesn't believe that I should be doing this program, or my dad doesn't believe I should be looking after myself, or he thinks I'm taking it too slow. And, all these kind of comments create distrust, and basically doesn't create a healing space. And I think it's so important to try and have that connection and open communication, but in a healthy way. So what was the process? So you've kind of gone through the ringer, you saw lots of different doctors, you got a diagnosis, you got a little bit of help from Royal Children's Hospital, which was good. That was your starting point. And then kind of what happened after that?
Well, it's a pretty long journey till we got to you. So I think by the time, Carly went into a program for a month. She was meant to go to the Austin, and because she'd turned 18, and it was a pediatric unit, they were going to accept her and make an exception, but then they realised if they do that, how do they say no to the next kid that's 18? So we went into a separate program that was set up by a kid that had gone through the Austin Hospital program. Mm-hmm. And she lived in there for a month and came back, and we were like, and at that stage, I still hadn't gone on that journey of how I separate myself. So I was too invested, and I probably put that burden on her of my expectation of, okay, you're going to be good now. And, there was all this hope, and there was too much pressure. And of course, she was good for a short period and then started to slip back because of a lot of anxiety that the person that's going through chronic fatigue feels, because just in the regime and boundaries itself create an anxiety. What if I go over this boundary? And I found that really difficult with Carly, to just relax. And it's okay if you run for 5 minutes more than you meant to. Nothing bad will happen to you. But her anxiety levels were really high, which created a lot of anxiety in me. And I didn't even realize I was carrying this anxiety. So along the journey, the key was finding for her, she went through a number of psychologists till she found the right person that worked for her, that she could connect to, and that kind of got her. And that was a big development in unlocking the anxiety. And I think when that happened, that helped me too. She started to understand what anxiety does and how it's restricting her. And then I suppose then connecting, there was you, this psychologist, and various other people at play. And that was, we had a lot of hope on this program that we put together ourselves, because there was nowhere for her to go. And this was already at maybe the 4 year, 3.5, 4 year
4
mark,
years.
I think. 4 years. And it was tough. And finding you and all these other people connected to you and putting that program in place was the beginning of unlocking that process of Carly moving forward and breaking those chains of these tight boundaries she'd put around herself, because I can't do this because this will happen, and all these things that she'd think if she overstepped something in her mind.
That's right. Yeah. And for everyone listening at home, like what Elana is saying is, like, basically it was a holistic approach. And some people are probably thinking right now, oh, you're talking a lot about mindset, you're talking about like psychologists. Well, yeah, there is a mindset component, but there was a huge physical component for Carly, and it was rehabbing herself back. When Elana says she was away for a month, she did an inpatient program for a month. A lot of it was physical rehab. So, physically reconditioning her body from literally scratch again, and getting her digestion working again, and getting her sleep patterns in order again. And so it was intensive work. And so that's kind of what we teach in our program now, but it's more of a holistic, relaxed version from the space of your own home, where you can actually set yourself up for success rather than kind of relying on someone outside of you for a month and then falling back to old habits. And this is why it works. You know what I mean? This is why it works, because you're in control. And so there is a process, that there is that process at a point, and it usually is depending on where you're at. But it's that middle stage where how to actually unlock progress is by loosening the grip. And at the start, you need to tighten the grip, because people just they push themselves way too much and beyond their means, and then that's why they feel terrible. But then there's the opposite, where you get to a point where you plateau and you're so restricted and you're holding on so tightly that all the energy is going there. But when you loosen the grip and you start to slowly expand appropriately for you, and you build up appropriate, that's where you start to make progress. What was it like for you when you let go? It sounds like, for me, the inpatient program, like you said, you were probably too invested in her, which put too much pressure on her, and she would have felt that too. What was it like for you in that process? And maybe it was 6 months after working with me that you maybe relaxed more, or 12 months in, I don't know. We didn't really talk back then, but when was it? And what was the process like? How did you let go? Was it just a matter of just trusting?
No. Hard. Because you have so much hope, and you so want them to get to that next stage where they can start to loosen the grip, and you can see that they needed those boundaries. But the anxiety, the tension you feel, and the fear of them slipping backwards again takes hold of you. For me personally, took hold of me. And if I'd see her just remotely slip back, I'd be on tenterhooks, like, oh my God,
not good, not good. Yeah.
And I wasn't sleeping, and my stress level was through the roof, and I couldn't really be a parent to my other 2 kids, and really a good partner to my husband even, because the anxiety that I was carrying was so huge. And that's when I went to see, a psychologist, life coach, just to help me manage that, because it was really affecting all my relationships. So it was a gradual process. And I think the biggest step was helping Carly get herself to live overseas in an exchange program. And, you know, I'd taken her away for her 19th birthday and then her 21st. And they were disastrous trips, hoping that, you know, this would reset things and whatever. They were a disaster and they were nightmares. I was like in tears every night, in the middle of the night, ringing my husband and saying, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And then, you know, getting Carly to that space where she had the confidence that she could go overseas and do this exchange program and be an exchange student. That was a real benchmark, and that was me letting go. Otherwise, she'd be, I was trying to be too controlling. You know, do this, do that, we'll do this, let's do this. And that was bombarding. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. One thing that comes to mind is mental rehearsal. And when we're trying to help our child or our, you know, the person close to us, depending on where it's coming from, if it's coming from a place of desperation and fear, it's mentally rehearsing to that person that they're not okay. And I went through the same process with my parents, and in the end, I actually sat down with them. And I said, and I was 17 at the time, I think, and I said, from now on, because they asked me, how are you feeling? Hey, every 3 hours, how are you feeling? You feeling okay? And I wasn't in a good way, you know, I was in a really bad way. But then I realized, I was like, wow, like, this isn't helpful. Like, I'm constantly talking about how bad I'm feeling. And we sat down, I said, hey, from now on, can you not ask how I'm feeling? And they said, okay. And I said, how about when I'm not feeling good, I'll just come and tell you.
Yeah, much better approach. That we mean well, and I meant well, but I learned through that person that I saw that I needed to stop doing that because I was too on alert, and she could feel me being on alert. And
she can't relax, right? She can't be at home and relax because you're constantly checking in on her. You know, it's like an emergency, but it's not, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you need this? Can I do this? Do you want to go for a walk? Can I do this? And just, you know, when you asked me what did I do, it wasn't until I saw somebody and started to take the process of distancing myself a bit from those unhelpful patterns that I thought were helpful, but they weren't, and taking control of that, and also creating space for me. Go and just take some time out, take a breather. Don't let it get under your skin, because if you're going to let it get under your skin, you're going to be anxious, and that anxiety, everyone's going to feed off. They're going to pick up off it, and so it was really important for me to find stuff for me that allowed me to. I got morose. I got really morose, and was like, okay, we need to pick myself up out of that bad space. So that was that process, finding that time so I can separate those feelings. Doesn't mean I ignore them, but I just found a way to tone them down. So those little voices in my head weren't running around so much, dictating every thought, every moment, every behavior.
Yeah. And it sounds like you just kind of diverted your focus. Like you changed your focus on 100% on Carly, and then you kind of maybe pulled 50% back to yourself, and just, you know, you still looked after her and stuff, but you kind of just pulled the energy back into yourself, which I think is really good, and kind of is a sign of leadership in a way, because that's just encouraging her to eventually have the space to claim it for herself.
Exactly.
And I remember probably, I don't know exactly when, probably 6 months, maybe 8 months in with working with Carly, there was a pivotal moment probably within that month where I just noted when she was coming in to see me and when we're having our sessions that she was more in charge for herself. You know, it wasn't like, oh, mum told me to come here or dad told me to come here. It was like, I'm doing this for me. And she mentioned that in her interview, that as well. And that was kind of her next level of responsibility and change. And that would have actually healed the relationship, and it would have been a much nicer place to be at the Warson's household in that time.
You know, it's hard not to, as a parent, from the time your kids are little, you are controlling.
Yes. Yeah. Well, even without an illness. Yeah. Like even without an illness, it's like there's a letting go period from like 18 to 21. Like I can't imagine that would be so hard even in that. But then to throw in a freaking illness that can really debilitate you. Oh my God.
So yeah, like you said, you know, the role as a parent is setting boundaries and guidelines. So you give examples to your kids. So then you hope through that they can go on and make good choices and do the right thing. And because you're used to controlling and doing all that, it was, and like you said, when kids turn 18, you've got to kind of pull back a bit and let them start to be adults and not try and control them so much. The relationship changes. When you're going through chronic fatigue, the natural instinct for a parent is to control, so to help the kid get over the situation. But controlling is creating an anxiety.
Getting in the way.
You need to let them get to a point. I think you said something really pivotal before about taking control, ownership of the illness. And I think for Carly, there was that turning point because I was able to finally give her that space. We were.
Exactly.
That she said, and it was a pivotal moment where she said she hit rock bottom. And I distinctly remember the phone call. She was living overseas. And she said, I can't let this control me any longer. I need to take control of this illness, not the illness controlling me. And because we'd given her the space to take control of her life, I think that was all part of it. But it was me letting go of the control.
Oh my God, amazing. Every probably month we get bunches of emails, obviously, from parents who want their children to do our program, and I tell Ash, our head of support, you know, no, like I don't want the parent to want the kid to do it. I want the kid to want to do it. And so we had an experience just recently, and the mum, she's lovely. She's just like you and every other freaking good mum in the world who just wants the best for her child. And she's like, oh, I just want him to do your program so badly. Like, I know it's going to help. I know it's going to help. And I said to her, stop. Like, just stop putting pressure on him. Like, if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. Like, you're forcing something, and nothing really good comes from forcing anything. So I said, the best thing you can do is actually stop trying for him to do the program. And let him, and I know it's hard, you know, and I can't imagine how hard it would be to stop trying, but it's counterintuitive, but it works. And, you know, of course, plant seeds and share stories and, oh, look, this person did this and that was possible for them, but that's it. Like, don't put any more pressure. Like, you need to do this, and let them come to their own assignments. You know, I think, like, you know, you're saying it perfectly too. You've got to create the space in order for someone to walk into the space and claim the space. And also, you know, what's that saying about, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it, or something like that?
They've got to be ready. And I think I pinned so much hope on so many things that she felt that hope, and that was too much pressure. So like you said, they have to want to do it themselves. They've got to want to walk through that door and do it for them. And when they're ready, they'll take on board things, and that anxiety will start to drop away.
Yeah. And just the self-empowerment, like, you know, Carly with a routine and a structure and doing the consistency stuff, you know, like showing up every day, eating the right stuff, you know, looking after ourselves, saying no to super late nights at the start, you know, saying no to alcohol to start with, and just building up appropriately in that age bracket where there's, you know, pressure to do all that kind of stuff. It was about boundaries for her and knowing what was right for her as well.
And individual, you said a really key thing. I get asked often, like there's some magic pill that you take. Oh, so what was it that made Carly like get over chronic fatigue? And I always say to people, it's not one thing, it's a combination of things, because basically the whole body shuts down. So if your whole central nervous system shuts down, everything shuts down. So it's like you said, it's about reboot. It's a holistic approach. It's diet, it's sleep patterns, it's exercise, it's life balance. How do you balance everything in your life so you can have a full life? Because typically, you know, and I mean, I'm generalizing, people that get chronic fatigue are more A-type personalities, not everybody, but generally. And you're perfectionists, and you're going to do things to the nth degree. So how do you learn to balance life? And that's what it is. It's about balancing what's right for you, what works for one person, what works for Toby Morrison, what works for me, what works for my daughter. We're all different. And we each have our own composition internally of how much stress we can take, how many late nights we can take, how much bad food we can take. And it's about loving your body and respecting your body, so you get that good balance.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And it really is. I've never, one of my sayings, you know, on all our webinars and stuff, before people join our program, you know, because they're like, what is it, you know, and I say, I've never had one person who's gotten better come to me and say, Toby, it was just this one thing. Never, ever. And I've literally worked with thousands of people. So, you know, it really is a holistic approach. And, you know, it's a personal holistic approach. And when you do the right things at the right time, the right things happen. And, you know, it's one of those things, you got to stick at it. You can't just shoot in the dark for a month and have a crack. You know, it's not about, you know, just trying things for a month and giving it a go. It's like, no, let's actually figure out what's the problem. Let's reverse engineer the problem and let's stick to the solution and be consistent with it. Because nothing great happens overnight. And it's a bit like building a house. You know, your husband owns a building company and he builds homes for a living, and he doesn't just build them in a month. He builds them periodically and does it properly. You know, you lay down the concrete first and you build the foundations. And it's the same thing with health.
It's probably what I took away the most, and what I learned the most is when you came into Carly's life. That was probably a big epiphany for me about really understanding chronic fatigue and about the whole holistic approach to balance for your body, for your mind and body. And that took me down a path. And as said, I went on and did transcendental meditation and so many different things, because it took me, and also even embracing a better diet and exercise. It took me on a path about life balance, because I got out of balance through watching the suffering of my child. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm not laughing. I'm just like, I'm laughing at it. It makes total sense, you know, and kind of how much of a health conscious your family has become too, you know, and how balanced. I feel like, you know, you're all very balanced people, you know, which is really cool to see as well. Before we wrap up, what are three, just off the top of your head, tips for any person out there who is in the carer position? You know, they've got a loved one who's going through this. What are three things that you'd like to say to them?
Okay, three things. I would say acknowledge in yourself when you feel those frustrations, because you getting frustrated, that creates an energy that then inadvertently puts a pressure on the person going through chronic fatigue. And work out a method of how you're going to deal with those frustrations so they don't spill over and colour every area of your life.
Brilliant.
To be patient. And what would be the third thing? To take time for yourself, so you make sure that you retain your balance, so then you can give properly.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and inadvertently that also is saying to let go as well, you know, and give space. You know, don't stop trying so hard. You know, let them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
which is what you're talking about before. They're brilliant tips. And you know, yeah, I just think just even this conversation alone is just going to be so helpful for people, because yeah, it's a tough journey, and it's a family one, and it really is there's nothing like it really. You know, like I'm getting emotional now thinking about what you went through and what my family went through, and what every other family's going through. It's a really tough thing, but I also think you can have fun along the way and find the moments of joy, and celebrate the little wins, you know, and write out the bad days, and you know, and come together on the good days, and over time, you know, it all adds up, and it really does. You know, there's no flukes. It's you know, luck is labor under correct knowledge from Paul Check, which is one of my, you know, coaches I used to look up to a lot, and I think really that's what it is, and it's labor under correct knowledge done over time. And you know, Carly's just, you know, from where she's gone to the person she's become today, and it really was a journey. It wasn't just an overnight thing. It's been a progression. It's been a progression going back into the workforce, you know, going into marketing, studying marketing and business, and then starting her own business because she's passionate about that with her friend, and now, you know, becoming a leader in that space as well, and also wanting to give back and become a humanitarian at the same time. You know, it's I always say to people, our program's not a recovery program, it's a life program. And
100%.
yeah, like, you know, it is, and same thing with you. Like it's just incredible to see who you have become through this, and also the fact that you're learning. You know, you've gone into study, you know, after becoming a mum, which is kind of rare. You know, a lot of people they give up that kind of dream, and you're doing it, and you know, you're going to be helping other people with it. So I'm really excited for your future. We'll probably do another round 2 interview. I think this one will be probably so helpful for so many people, and we can share some resources in that one too. But for now, just thank you so much, for coming on. Thanks for being such a warrior and a strong woman to go through what you did, and it's just awesome to see what you're doing now.
Thank you. I've learned a lot along the journey, and I think it's what you take from the experience. And no matter when times are really bleak, there is a silver lining. And, you know, I look at where Carly is today. She probably wouldn't be where she is today if not for going through this horrid journey, but she's learned so much about herself and life, and how to live a full life, but a balanced full life. And in turn, I've learned that too.
Oh God, yeah, that's so true. I speak to Carly. We check in usually every couple of months, and she's a very wise woman for her age, you know, and just the wisdom that she has inside. And you know, she's obviously super switched on too, but just even the pure wisdom that comes out of her mouth sometimes. And you're right, she probably would be a very different person if she, and maybe not for the better, if she didn't go through this and come out the other end as the person she is today. So yeah, well said.
Yeah,
thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll
well,
do it again. Thanks, love.
we will.
Speak to you soon.
Ciao.